Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Dear Goddess. I'm Kel, life transformation coach, somatic practitioner, best-selling author, international speaker, and your host of Dear Goddess, which is your new favorite podcast. So if this is your first episode, welcome. If you have been around since the Dear Dumb Bitch days, which is where this journey first began, thank you for being here and thank you for being a part of my journey and for witnessing my evolution. In this episode, we're having a conversation about becoming a modern day goddess and also what the fuck feminine embodiment actually means, and more importantly, why it matters. But before we dive in, I want to just acknowledge and speak to the very first episode. If you listen to the first episode, then you know what a journey it was to actually record it. If you haven't listened to the first episode, go back and listen to it after this and you'll know what I'm talking about. So in the first episode, I initially recorded it very disconnected from my body, which kind of goes against the idea of feminine embodiment, which I'll speak more to later in this episode. And also I had like my full-on script, which I was like trying to read from and get it just right. And my sweet inner child was just so triggered and so activated and trying to like get everything just perfect. And I turned into this like robot. And if you haven't seen the bloopers that I shared on Instagram, you need to go watch them because they are actually hilarious. And I'm saying this from a place of love and compassion for myself, not like, oh my goodness, what's wrong with you? And the reason I felt called to share those bloopers is because I really want to normalize what happens behind the scenes as you are following your dreams, as you are saying yes to your vision and your soul's purpose and calling. And there is this period of time where you have to adjust and step into that. Your nervous system has to regulate and calibrate. And when we are living a life of purpose, we are going to be facing and alchemizing and transmuting and transcending a lot of our own personal patterns. That's really what this journey of entrepreneurship is all about. It's a spiritual journey. I missed that memo. I had no idea this is what it would be about. I thought I was just gonna like build my dream business and create impact and help and support women. And in reality, it has been my deepest soul lessons, inner child wounds related to perfectionism, visibility wounds, people pleasing, really allowing myself to speak my authentic truth and to trust that. All of this has been things that I've been navigating on my own personal journey. And so often we don't have this conversation, and this is the conversation that we need to be having. We're not really going too deep into it today, but I just felt called to mention it and to acknowledge it because we see people who are doing the podcast and doing the things that we desire to do, and we forget that they were a beginner once as well. The Gabby Bernsteins of the world, the Mel Robbins, whoever else you admire and look up to in this space of whatever you're stepping into, they gave themselves permission to be a beginner. And giving yourself permission to be a beginner can be so uncomfortable. There could be so much cringe and awkwardness, but really embracing that, embracing it as part of the process, embracing it as part of the journey, and celebrating yourself for having the courage to show up and to say yes. So if you haven't seen those bloopers, go check them out because they are honestly hilarious. And it was really like, if you want to see nervous system dysregulation in real life, it was that. And more than anything, it was really a reflection to me of how important the work of feminine embodiment is, the importance of somatic healing, connecting with your body, which is what I do. I do all of these things. This is the work I share with women in my coaching programs. And yet in that episode, I forgot, which makes sense because as we're stepping into new things, we have to remember on deeper levels. Let this be a permission slip for you to let it be messy, to give yourself permission to be a beginner and to trust yourself, to show up, and to know that it's all part of the process. It's part of the journey. You can't skip this step, which is what most people want to do. They want to skip over the discomfort of being a beginner, of not knowing what you're doing. And this is one of the most important parts of the journey. I edited the video by myself, which initially I was like, you know what? Editing videos, not in my zone of genius. I'm going to let someone else do that. I'm going to hire someone to edit the video, and I absolutely will do that one day. But it felt really, really important for me to edit these first episodes, at least initially, because there's so much power in seeing yourself, especially if you perhaps have a visibility wound, which as women, we so often do and don't even realize it, which is the importance of doing the inner work so you can really identify and recognize the wounding and the subconscious programming and stories that are really limiting you and holding you back. So seeing yourself is so important. I remember when I did my first major talk, it was called FabX. If you haven't seen my video, I will link it in the show notes. And FabX is kind of like Bali's version of TEDx, of TED Talks, except with just more heart and soul. So after I spoke at the event, I got the video back, and I waited so long to actually watch it. And I gave all kinds of excuses of like, oh, I really want to like create a ceremony around it and wait till I'm super focused and present and block off my entire calendar. And it's like, no, bitch, you're just afraid to see yourself. And it took so long for me to actually sit down and watch that video, to witness myself, to see myself. And when I watched that video, I had to anchor in such an intention that I'm watching it from a lens of love. I'm watching it from this place of celebration and really acknowledging myself for showing up, and not this place of criticism, of judgment, of you could do better, of that inner critic. And it took a lot to really hold that frequency. So as I was watching the video, which you have to do when you're editing a video podcast, I was actually just so proud of myself, bloopers and all, which most of the bloopers were from the first take of recording, which refused to upload. It was a sign from the universe that it wasn't meant to be. But going back and watching myself, so beautiful. And I learned a lot. I learned that I fuck with my hair a lot. So I got this cute little flower in there now. There's so much power in seeing yourself and also having that feedback, but letting it be from a place of curiosity and a place of love, and just giving yourself permission to show up, that dream that you have, that desire, that vision. It was planted on your heart for a reason. It's because it's meant for you. And the fears are never gonna go away. And the more you try to get rid of fear, the bigger it becomes, because what we give our energy to expands. And yet, all we need is courage. Just courage to take that next step. We also need a regulated nervous system. We need some strategies to get our inner child on board. But this is a conversation for another episode. So let's dive into being a modern day goddess. Now, I'm going to share a story, and I might be dating myself when I share this, but I am going to date myself. I turned 40 last year. My birthday is September 23rd. I am a Libra sun, Cancer rising, Virgo moon, in case you were wondering. And I turned 40 last year, so I'm not dating myself by this story. Now, I don't know if you remember the original AOL Instant Messenger. This is going back to dial-up days. Remember when the internet was just becoming a thing and you would have to plug into the wall, into the phone line, and it would be making all like the dial-up sounds, and then you had AOL, which was like the only service provider. And then there was Instant Messenger, AOL Instant Messenger. AIM, good old AIM. Do you remember this? So my original AOL Instant Messenger name was Goddess92. Now, mind you, I was in middle school, so I was probably, like 12 or 13. I didn't know what the fuck a goddess meant, but I was just drawn to that energy, to that archetype. And that was my original AIM name. I'm talking to friends and boys using my Goddess923. So this idea of being a goddess has always really been part of my frequency, but I didn't know what that meant when I was like 12 or 13. So then I just completely forgot about it, and life happened. And fast forward to I'm living in Bali. And Bali has really been a journey of feminine embodiment and healing, which we're going to talk more about what feminine embodiment actually means. But I had no idea that that's what my Bali journey was going to be about. Well, a part of it. My Bali journey has had so many portals of just healing and transformation. So when I first arrived in Bali back in 2023, I had a tarot reading with one of the most well-renowned tarot readers in Bali. She really spoke a lot to this journey of feminine embodiment and healing. When I first arrived in Bali, I was very much still in this pattern of wounded masculine energy. Now, in order to really understand this concept of being a modern day goddess, we need to have some context for the conversation that's about to unfold. And you may be familiar with masculine and feminine energetics, but we're just going to do a little recap of it right now so that way you have a foundation to stand on. I'm not going to go super deep into this because these are actual programs that I have and they go super deep, but they're weeks long. So this is not the place for that, but just to give you some context, we need to start off with the universal law of gender. So regardless of what gender you identify with, as a human, you have masculine and feminine energy. And so often we have wounding related to our masculine and feminine energetics, and they are not in harmony. They're not in balance. And there's many reasons for this. Again, I go into this in my programs. So we're not going to unpack all of this today, but oftentimes our masculine and feminine energies are not coming from a place of harmony and balance. And this was very much the case for me for most of my life. I was either living in wounded feminine energy, and then what often happens is the masculine comes in from a wounded place to protect our wounded feminine energy. He comes in as this knight in shining armor and thinks he's saving the day and protecting us, and really he's kind of limiting us even more because we're still operating from that place of wounding. And we're really using childhood solutions to create safety, to create connection, to create love in our present reality, and they're not effective. Our sweet inner childs, they're so beautiful, so loving, but their strategies don't work. They don't work anymore. So this is what's happening when we see these patterns of wounded masculine and wounded feminine energies in our life. So I arrived to Bali and I was still very much in this boss babe energy. And it was all about my schedule, doing as much as possible. Look at how much I can do. Very much living in the mind. Very disconnected from my body, which is where our true feminine power lives. And really operating from this wounded masculine energy. I have this tarot reading and she's reflecting this back to me, and she's sharing how I'm on this journey of feminine healing and feminine embodiment, and I didn't fully even understand what that meant because I was still just beginning to dive into this work. And I would say over the past 2.5 years, that has been a huge part of my own personal journey. Last year, I was on a call with one of my mentors, Lauren of Love, and we were doing a group coaching call. It was my turn to receive coaching, and we were mapping out the framework for a new program I was creating because I knew at this point I wanted to create a feminine embodiment and healing program. And she asked me what the name is. Now, mind you, I had the opportunity for coaching on the call, and I was like, yep, it's me, this is happening. But I did not fully have this program mapped out. I didn't have the name or anything. So I'm on this group call and she asked me what the name is, and goddess codes just came through. And then we mapped out the program. The program is now on its second round, which it initially started off as a 6-week program. It's now an 8-week program. The next time I offer it, it will probably be a 12-week program because it just keeps growing and expanding, and it is so powerful. It's some of my deepest teachings as it relates to feminine embodiment and healing and stepping into the truest expression of our power. But goddess codes came through, and again, this whole energy and frequency of this goddess energy just kept coming into my field. So let's actually talk about what it means to be a modern day goddess. And let's start off with what is a goddess? I asked the dictionary and they said it is the female form of a god, which in some ways is very much true because a goddess is a woman who is connected to the god, to the goddess within, and who doesn't see herself as separate from God, who doesn't see herself as separate from the goddess, because she is that. And as someone who grew up in a Roman Catholic household, I went to Catholic school, I had a lot of deconditioning and unlearning to do as it relates to my idea of God. For the longest time, I viewed God as being some old man up in the clouds with a big white beard judging me, and that is not God. So God, the universe, source, spirit, creator, higher self, whatever term you resonate with, is not separate from you. It is you. So a goddess is really someone who feels that within herself and is connected to the divinity that she is, that you are. So that's the dictionary's definition of the goddess. It's the female version of the god. And to me, the definition, and to me, what it means to be a goddess is it's a woman on a journey to her fullest expression, a woman on this journey of healing, spirituality, self-love, self-discovery. It's all the same journey. It's all leading you back home to yourself. And it's a woman who is really committed to herself and to her growth and to living a life of truth, to discovering who she really is, not who she was taught to be, not who she thinks she is, but the truth beneath it all. That is a goddess. And there are different feminine archetypes. We have the maiden, the wild woman, the queen, the crone. I share these in goddess codes, but a goddess to me is really a woman who is embodied in all of them, who is embodied in her fullest expression, who has integrated all of these parts of herself and is connected with her divine feminine. So we discuss masculine and feminine energetics and how they often show up in their wounded expression. So to fully be embodied in our divine feminine essence, we need to be in right relation with these aspects of ourself and to integrate them, to bring them together so they can work together to support us, because feminine empowerment, feminine embodiment is not about rejecting the masculine. In fact, it's actually the opposite. It's about healing the underlying wounding as it relates to the masculine, coming into right relation with our masculine, because so often the relationship that we have with our own inner masculine is very, very toxic. And we see that reflected back in our life, whether it's romantic relationships or the relationship that we have with our career, with work, with time, with our body. Life is just a series of relationships, and it's always reflecting the relationship that we have with ourselves. And using this framework and this understanding of masculine and feminine energetics, we really get to come into greater awareness and connection of the relationship with self, which is why I love this work, because it truly is what allows you to have this beautiful, divine, sacred union within yourself. We talk about desiring sacred union in a partnership with another person. Well, in order to have that, we need to have that within ourselves, because that's what's going to be mirrored back in our relationships. So the more that we're able to really come into the healed expression, the empowered expression of our feminine and masculine, the more that we're able to really come into this beautiful, beautiful relationship with self. So becoming a goddess means awakening the divine feminine and really incorporating different qualities of the divine feminine into your life. And we'll talk more about the qualities of the divine feminine here in just a moment. But being a modern day goddess is bringing in this archetype of the goddess into your day-to-day reality. And let me tell you, we live in a world where we need as many women embodying their inner goddess as possible. So the goddess is the ancient part of you. She's the wisdom within you that knows. She is the truest part of you. She is your divine feminine essence. And the more that you're able to connect with her and allow her to move through you, the more that you're able to show up in your truest expression, because that is your truth. You are a goddess, and I'm a goddess, and she's a goddess, and she's a goddess. And we're all goddesses, but we need to believe that for ourselves. So the modern day goddess is the divine feminine, and she speaks her truth unapologetically. She's not filtering herself. Now, she's coming from a place of kindness, but she's not nice necessarily. And it seems like a subtle distinction, this idea of being kind versus nice. But for me, this niceness is playing into the pattern of people pleasing and the good girl archetype, which again, we break these down in goddess codes. But she is kind because she's connected to her heart, but she's not prioritizing others over herself. She is not using this niceness as a way to manipulate others to avoid things within herself, because that's what people pleasing is really about. It's a pattern to avoid the discomfort of disappointing someone, because it's easier to just go along with whatever it is and to please than it is to be with the discomfort of not. It's rooted in shame, and it also exists in our nervous system as the fawn response. So the modern day goddess does not filter herself. She is authentic. She speaks her truth from a place of love and from a place of kindness. And she lives in self-devotion, which is really next level self-care. Self-care is great. It's so important. It's also so 2024. This is the year 2025, or whatever year you're listening. It's time to upgrade it. It's self-devotion. It's bringing in deeper intention and bringing in deeper commitment to ourselves, to our energy, to our practices. A modern day goddess embraces her shadows. She's not afraid of any part of herself. She's not rejecting any part of herself, because she has developed unconditional love for herself. And so often our self-love is conditional, because we're taught that that's what love is. We're taught that we receive love when we achieve this, when we do this, when we don't do that. And we are taught that love is conditional. And our ego loves the idea of conditional love, because it's creating all of these boxes of, I need to be this and I need to do that, and I can't do that because when I do that, I'm not loved. But the divine feminine, the modern day goddess, her love for self is unconditional. She loves herself on the days where she feels like she's making mistakes and nothing is going right, just as much as the days where everything is just flowing and she feels on top of the world. And so often we judge ourselves on the days where we're having a hard time, or we're feeling triggered. Things don't really feel like they are going the way that we want them to. Perhaps we feel like we're fucking things up. Those are the days that we usually judge ourselves the most, and those are the days that we need our own love the most. We need our own compassion the most. So the modern day goddess is rooted in unconditional love, which means she embraces all parts of herself. She loves being triggered, not because she enjoys the experience of being triggered, but because she's discovering new parts of herself. She's discovering more of herself. And that is that sense of wholeness that we desire. It's really knowing all of ourselves and taking all of these fragmented parts of self that have become separated because of experiences from the past, because of trauma, because of wounding, and integrating them and bringing them back home into our heart, where they can heal with love, because our own love is the medicine. So the modern day goddess embraces her shadow. She's not afraid of herself. She wants to know all of herself and to really embrace all of herself and to heal what's beneath these shadows, because that's how she gets to step into more of her light. She also doesn't look outside of herself for anything, for validation, for love, for connection, because she's giving it to herself. She's not looking outside of herself for safety, because she creates internal safety. So there is no void, there's nothing missing, because she is insourcing and giving these things to herself. And this is how patterns of dependency develop. If we're looking outside of ourselves, we're outsourcing our power and we become dependent on things to feel a certain way about ourselves. And the modern day goddess is resourced with herself, with source, with the universe, and she knows that everything she needs is inside. Now, this doesn't mean she doesn't desire connection. It doesn't mean she doesn't desire love, but what it means is that she doesn't need it. She doesn't need it to feel a certain way about herself. A modern day goddess is really a woman on a healing journey, which is probably you if you're watching this podcast. So it's a woman who is healing and simultaneously knows that while she's healing, she's already healed, because she knows she's not broken. She knows that she is not something to fix, but she also knows that there are parts of herself that can be healed, and simultaneously she is already healed. So she is healing her wounds. She's healing the ancestral wounds. She is healing her karmic wounds, because who knew that there were all these layers and levels of wounding? It's not just healing from this lifetime. It's healing from the generational trauma that's been passed down. It's healing the spiritual baggage and the karmic that has been passed down through all of the lifetimes that we have existed. And how beautiful that we get to step into this. We get to choose this. The modern day goddess honors her body and truly, truly views it as her sacred temple, as her sacred vessel to experience this lifetime in. So she honors her body, she nurtures it, she nourishes it, she makes decisions that really respect her body, whether it is how she chooses to move it and work out, or partnerships and relationships. She is honoring her body. And when we look at the choices that we make, so often they are being dictated by past wounding and by trauma and by the subconscious conditioning that we are looking to shift and change. So this is an evolution. It's not about getting it perfect. It's about having the discernment to continuously evolve and to see yourself and to witness yourself. So the modern day goddess honors her body. She embraces her sensuality and her sexuality, and she has slayed the shame around her sensuality and her sexuality, because as women, and really as people in general, but we are conditioned to carry a lot of shame about everything in life, but especially as it relates to our sensuality, our pleasure, and our sexuality. And these are actually pillars of feminine embodiment, because a woman who's embodied in her feminine energy, she is connected to her body. That the body is the feminine, the mind is the masculine. She's connected to her body, she honors her body, she knows this is where her power is. And yet, so often as women, especially, we're disconnected from our body. We're taught to live in our minds. Perhaps you have experienced overthinking and just feeling like you're all up in your head. That's when you are in your wounded masculine energy. So bringing it back into your body, which is where we really get to experience this moment and life. Because if when we're in our head and we're thinking, so often our energy is either in the past or the future. We're not present in this moment. And our nervous system plays a role in this as well, because we oftentimes don't feel safe being in our body. We don't feel safe being in this moment. So we disconnect. So there's so many layers to this. But a woman who is embodied in her divine feminine energy, who's really embodying this modern day goddess, is connected to her body. She embraces her sensuality as a sensual being, as a being who uses her senses to experience life. She embraces her sexuality, and she doesn't carry shame around that, or her pleasure. And carrying shame towards our desires, towards pleasure, towards sensuality, towards sexuality, has been conditioned into us as women for centuries and centuries and centuries. And now, as modern day goddesses, we are here to really decondition that and to come back into more of ourself. The modern day goddess is a creatrix. She uses this energy within her, her life force. She uses her life force energy within her to create, to bring life to her life, to the vision that she has, to actually creating her life rather than just reacting to life and letting life happen. She is independent and authentic, and she's intuitive and has a spiritual connection and lives by the guidance of her intuition, because she knows that the wisdom from her soul and her heart are always showing her where she is meant to be. But in order to actually listen to and hear and follow the guidance of our intuition, our internal compass, we need to be connected with our body, because your intuition doesn't live in your mind. It's lived and connected to, it lives in your body. She is wildly passionate, which means she also has a healthy relationship with anger. And as women, we oftentimes don't have connection to our anger. And we're taught that if you're angry, you're a bitch, and that it's a bad thing. But in order to be passionate about something, we also have to be connected with the emotion of anger, because they're essentially the same emotion, but just coming through in different frequencies. So a woman who is embodied in her divine feminine essence and is embracing the modern day goddess archetype is connected to her emotions. She doesn't try to suppress them or avoid them. She uses them as portals and knows how to alchemize them and transmute them. And that's what actually creates energy, because we're able to take some of those denser emotions. Emotions aren't good or bad, but we have a preference for some over others. But she uses her own power to alchemize and transmute and turn pain into power. She honors her boundaries. She honors her boundaries unapologetically. She really prioritizes herself and puts things in and has practices that really honors what she needs to preserve her energy and to support her. The modern day goddess is connected to sisterhood, and as women we have so many deep-rooted wounds related to sisterhood, which makes sense because as women we heal in community, we rise in tribe, and if we have wounding that keeps us from, so it makes sense that we would have wounding that keeps us from that, to view other women as competition, to view them as a threat, because it keeps us disconnected from experiences and environments that allow us to come into more of our true power. The modern day goddess has emotional mastery. She is not afraid of her emotions, which means her nervous system has the capacity to be with her emotions and to hold herself in that experience. And she is not a victim in life or to her emotions or to her nervous system. So often we are trying to step into our sovereignty, and yet we are still being a victim of our emotions because we're letting our emotions control and dictate us, and we're being reactive to them. And this isn't about making yourself right or wrong. It's about awareness, because we cannot shift and change what we aren't aware of. So recognizing how we are reacting to emotions, how we are perhaps avoiding or suppressing emotions, how we are perhaps looping in our emotions by trying to think them, because so often we develop self-awareness and it cock blocks us from our true healing because we're triggered by something. We feel emotions coming up and we're trying to analyze it. We're trying to figure it out. What does it mean? What's the root cause of this? And and it's like, no, you're in your head. You're thinking your emotions, which is really just keeping you in this loop. So feel first, process later. There's a place for that. It's important. But when we skip the feeling part, we are actually blocking our true healing, and we're creating, it's like these energetic like knots that keep these emotions stuck in our energetic body. So these are some of the aspects of what it means to be a modern day goddess. So I actually created a program called the Modern Day Goddess, and I initially shared it as a 5-day challenge, and I was a bit excited with it because I included so much. There is a daily audio transmission, so it's like a podcast style recording. There is an embodiment practice. There are journal prompts for every single day. And as I was sharing it with the women, I'm like, ooh, this is actually a lot of information. So I decided, instead of it being a live 5-day challenge, it's now available for purchase. And you could go at your own pace, which is really the way of the feminine. So literally for less than the cost of your cup of coffee or matcha, you can have a daily program to support you on your own journey of feminine embodiments and really stepping into becoming the modern day goddess. So what is feminine embodiments? Feminine embodiment is the actual journey of becoming the modern day goddess. And embodiment is the practice of becoming, because so often when we're on this journey of healing, of self-love, we're coming at it from a very masculine approach. We're thinking our healing, we're thinking and doing all of the self-love things. And it's less about thinking and doing and more so about being and becoming, which is the feminine way. It's not about, if I do all of these things, then one day I'm going to become the best version of myself and I gotta fix myself because I'm broken. And do you feel the energy of that? We're really like stuck on this treadmill essentially, where we're just reinforcing the underlying programs and underlying wounding that we are often trying to heal from and to transcend in the first place. So feminine embodiment is about actually becoming. And let me tell you, you can listen to all the podcasts, including this one. You can read the self-help books. You can save all the posts on Instagram. That's not going to do it. That's not going to actually allow you to make the changes in your life. And again, this isn't about fixing yourself, but this is about taking that information and using it to become, actually bringing it into your body, letting it change you on a cellular level, letting it shift your energy. This is why I send out the journaling prompts and the embodiment practices for every single episode, because I don't want this to just be another podcast that you listen to and it's like, cool, I'm taking all of this information in, but it's like, what then? How are you actually using it in your life? Embodiment is actually taking these concepts and things that you're learning and the information you're consuming and bringing it into your body, bringing it into your being. It's connecting you with your body, which is where your divine feminine lives. The feminine's in the body. She's not in the mind. Now, the mind is important, but so often our mind is out of control and just taking over the show. It's in like the driver's seat when really our mind is meant to be a tool. It's meant to live in devotion to our heart and devotion to our feminine energy, and not something that's just taking over and controlling and, quite frankly, making our life suck. And more than anything, I view the journey of feminine embodiment and healing as the path to becoming the fullest expression of yourself, to reveal all of you, and to do so from a place of love, of acceptance, of knowing that right now, in this very moment, you are enough. You're embodied in your worth. You feel it, you believe it, you know it, you remember it, because all of this is a divine remembrance. It's not about learning something new. It's about activating the wisdom that's already within you. It's about remembering, because we forget our magnificence, we forget our true power, we forget our innate worth. And the more that we remember, the more that we truly get to show up as our fullest expression and to be who we're meant to be. And feminine embodiment is really what takes this journey of self-love and healing from being things that feel like just another thing on the to-do list of life, which is probably feels like it keeps getting longer and longer, and to actually let it be a way of being. The modern day goddess is rooted in ritual. And for me, rituals just create this depth and this richness to life and just bring in so much more intentionality. So let me give you an example. My morning routine used to be so high maintenance and so extreme. It would literally be honestly like hours long, where I had to use like every tool in the toolbox. And it was very much a coping mechanism because I was using it as a way to manage and control. It wasn't, what do I actually need that's going to support me? It was just, I know I got to do all these things or else I'm going to feel massive anxiety. And let's be honest, I kind of felt massive anxiety either way, because I was just bypassing the whole nervous system component and also the underlying wounding that was creating the need for this coping mechanism. But now my mornings are rooted in ritual. I have different practices that I use depending on what's going to support me that day and what I intuitively feel called to. When you have rituals in your life, rituals are the way of the feminine. That's when life gets to become a ceremony and it becomes this beautiful way of experiencing life. So we honestly barely even scratched the surface with this, because there's so much that I have to share about feminine embodiment and healing and the inner goddess and connecting with the goddess and being a modern day goddess. We'll discuss this more in future episodes. And if you are looking to dive deeper into this work, the Modern Day Goddess would be a great place to start. I'll put the link in the show notes, and then Goddess Codes, which is my signature program where we really go deep in the journey of feminine embodiment and healing. So we have reached the end of the episode. Thank you for being here. I'm so honored for your support and for sharing your time and your energy with me. As I mentioned, I don't want this to just be another podcast that you listen to, so make sure you click the link in the show notes so that way you can receive the email that has the journaling prompts and the embodiment practice for integration, so you can actually take what we're discussing on the show and apply it into your life, because that's where true transformation happens. We're also having a review contest right now, so leave a review of the show on Spotify or Apple and take a screenshot of it, share it in your Instagram stories, make sure you tag me so I can actually see it, and then you will receive automatic access to a masterclass of your choice, as well as the opportunity to win a free session with me. Your support means so much to me, so make sure you subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, all the places. It really does matter and it really makes a difference. And send me a message on Instagram. I love connecting with you. I'd love to hear how this episode resonated with you, what your favorite takeaways are, and where you're at on your own personal journey. So thank you for being here, and I will see you next time.